The jungle breathed around them like a living thing, heavy with mist and the scent of rain-soaked earth. Leaves trembled in the early dusk, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled low and patient. Elena stopped walking, her heart pounding for reasons she could not fully name. This was not fear. This was the moment when life quietly asks you who you really are. She had not planned to be here with them, not like this. Luca, Matteo, and Julian had started as strangers on a forgotten European expedition trail. 4 travelers crossing paths by accident. Different countries, different stories, different wounds. Yet the jungle did not care about their pasts. It stripped everything down to truth. Elena had always been the careful one, the girl who chose safety over desire, silence over honesty, but something about the way the jungle wrapped around them made it impossible to hide. Luca's calm strength grounded her. Matteo's laughter cracked open her guarded heart. Julian's quiet intensity saw her in ways no one ever had. The challenge was not attraction. That came easily and naturally, like rain. The real challenge was choice. Each of them carried their own storms. Luca had lost love once and feared hurting again. Matteo hid his loneliness behind charm. Julian believed wanting more than one truth made him broken, and Elena stood between them, terrified of becoming the reason they would fall apart. That night, as rain finally broke from the sky, they took shelter beneath towering trees. No one spoke at first. The silence was thick, honest, demanding courage. Elena was the one who finally spoke. She admitted her confusion, her fear of judgment, her longing to be seen without being owned. Her words trembled, but they were real. The jungle listened, and so did they. What followed was not reckless. It was careful. Consent wrapped in trust. Emotions laid bare instead of hidden behind impulse. When Luca stepped closer, he asked with his eyes before anything else. When Matteo reached out, it was gentle, uncertain. When Julian met her gaze, it was with respect, not possession. The kiss that followed was not about heat. It was about release. It was the moment Elena realized she did not have to choose one version of herself. She could be soft and strong, desired and respected, free and connected. The jungle did not judge them. It simply bore witness. But the next challenge came with the morning. Reality always does. Civilization waited beyond the trees, with its rules and labels and narrow definitions of love. They knew this moment could not last forever, and that was the hardest truth of all. Instead of promises they could not keep, they chose honesty. Instead of clinging, they chose gratitude. They acknowledged what they had shared was real, even if temporary. When they finally parted ways at the edge of the jungle, none of them were the same people who had entered it. Elena walked away knowing she was allowed to want, to feel, to explore without shame. Luca learned that love does not always mean loss. Matteo discovered depth beneath his laughter. Julian realized that complexity does not make a heart broken. The jungle closed behind them, keeping their secret. And the message lingered long after the echoes of thunder faded. Love is not about ownership. Desire is not something to fear. And sometimes, the most powerful connection is not the one you keep forever, but the one that teaches you who you are, brave enough to become. Morning arrived softly, as if the jungle itself was careful not to wake them too abruptly. Sunlight slipped through the leaves in broken gold patterns, resting on faces that looked peaceful yet changed. Elena opened her eyes first. For a brief second, she forgot where she was. Then memory returned like a quiet wave, not crashing, just settling deep inside her chest. Luca was already awake, sitting a little distance away, staring into the trees as if they might answer questions he had never dared to ask before. Matteo lay on his back, arms behind his head, watching the sky with an unfamiliar seriousness. Julian stood near the edge of the clearing, alert, thoughtful, as though guarding something invisible but precious. No one rushed to speak. What they had shared did not demand explanation. but the silence carried weight. The kind that asks whether you are strong enough to face what comes next. The journey resumed, but everything felt different. Each step forward was also a step inward. Elena noticed how the forest no longer felt overwhelming. It felt honest. The same could not be said about the world waiting beyond it. As the hours passed, doubts crept in. Matteo joked less. Luca grew quieter. Julian's gaze lingered on Elena longer than before, not with desire, but with concern. The challenge now was not attraction or emotion. It was fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of regret. Fear that what felt right in the jungle would feel impossible outside it. At a narrow river crossing, tension finally surfaced. Matteo questioned whether they were pretending this moment could exist without consequences. Luca worried aloud about hurting someone, including himself. Julian admitted he had spent his life choosing restraint over truth and did not know how to stop. Elena listened, and for the first time in her life, she did not shrink. She told them that the jungle had not changed who they were. It had revealed them, that love and connection were not fragile things that shattered under scrutiny, but living experiences meant to be felt fully, even if briefly. She reminded them that courage was not about holding on. Sometimes it was about letting a moment be meaningful without demanding it last forever. The river rushed between them, clear and cold. One by one they crossed, helping each other, steadying uncertain footing. It became a quiet metaphor. None of them spoke aloud. By evening, the edge of civilization appeared. Faint road markings, distant sounds. The jungle began to loosen its grip, and with it came the final challenge. Goodbyes. There were no dramatic speeches, no promises that would weigh them down. Luca hugged Elena with gratitude, not regret. Matteo smiled, eyes softer than usual, finally unafraid of sincerity. Julian took her hand for a moment longer, not to claim, but to acknowledge. They parted in different directions, carrying the same truth in different ways. As Elena walked toward the road, she realized something powerful. The jungle had not given her answers. It had given her permission. Permission to feel deeply, to choose honesty over fear, to trust that even fleeting connections can shape a lifetime. Behind her, the jungle stood still, holding their story within its roots and shadows. And ahead, the world waited. Not to define her, but to meet her exactly as she now was. Time did what the jungle never could. It separated them. Months passed, then a year. Cities replaced trees. Noise replaced silence. Yet the memory of that jungle lingered in all of them, not like a temptation, but like a compass quietly pointing toward truth. Elena rebuilt her life with a new honesty. She spoke more openly, loved more consciously. She stopped apologizing for her depth. Friends noticed a change before she did. She was calmer, steadier, less afraid of being misunderstood. The jungle had taught her that her heart was not something to tame, but something to understand. Luca returned to his work with a different softness. He no longer saw love as something that inevitably ended in loss. He allowed himself to feel without armor. Matteo stopped hiding behind jokes. He chose solitude over shallow connection, learning the difference between attention and intimacy. Julian finally stopped denying his complexity. He accepted that wanting deeply did not make him flawed. It made him human. They did not speak. They did not message. They respected the silence they had chosen. Until fate, quiet and deliberate, intervened. Elena arrived first, unaware that the past was already moving toward her. A cultural festival in southern Europe brought them all to the same city for different reasons. She felt it before she saw it. That familiar stillness in her chest. That sense of recognition without expectation. Julian noticed her across a crowded square. He did not approach immediately. Neither did she. They simply looked at each other, both understanding that whatever this moment was, it needed no urgency. Later that evening, Luca appeared, stunned but smiling, as if life had just revealed a secret he never stopped believing in. Mateo joined them last, his laughter breaking the tension, not to deflect, but to celebrate. This reunion was different. There was no confusion, no unresolved longing, just warmth, respect, gratitude. They talked for hours, sharing who they had become instead of clinging to who they were. The jungle came up only once, and when it did, they smiled the way people smile at a place that changed them forever, but no longer defines them. The challenge now was not desire or fear. It was choice. And this time, the choice was clear. They did not try to recreate the past. They did not force meaning onto something that had already fulfilled its purpose. Instead, they honored it by letting it remain what it was, a moment of truth that shaped 4 lives in quiet, permanent ways. When the night ended, they hugged like old friends who had survived something sacred together. No regret, no sadness, just understanding. As Elena walked away through the glowing streets, she felt something settle inside her. Not loss, not longing. Peace. Some stories are not meant to continue in the same way. Some connections exist to awaken you, not accompany you forever. And that does not make them any less powerful. The jungle had taught them courage. Life had taught them wisdom. And together, those lessons became freedom. Life did not slow down for any of them. It never does. But something inside them had changed its rhythm. Elena moved to a coastal town where the morning smelled like salt and new beginnings. She worked, laughed, loved, and sometimes walked alone along the shore, letting the waves remind her that not everything meaningful needs permanence. She no longer feared depth. She welcomed it. When love entered her life again, it found a woman who knew herself, who could choose without losing herself. Luca found quiet happiness in a way he once believed impossible. He learned that love does not have to be guarded to survive. It only needs honesty. When he spoke of the past, it was without bitterness. The jungle had taken his fear and replaced it with trust. Mateo became someone people leaned on, not because of his jokes, but because of his presence. He discovered that being seen for who you are is far more powerful than being admired for who you pretend to be. His laughter remained, but now it carried truth instead of escape. Julian traveled the most. He needed distance to fully understand what closeness meant. Over time, he realized that complexity was not something to solve. It was something to accept. He wrote often, filling pages with thoughts he once kept locked away. The jungle appeared in his words more than once, always as a place of awakening. Years passed. They did not reunite again, not because they could not, but because they did not need to. What they shared lived on quietly, shaping how they loved, how they listened, how they chose. It was never a burden, it was a gift. One evening, Elena sat on the beach as the sun dipped into the sea, painting the sky in colors too beautiful to name. She smiled to herself, realizing something profound. That chapter of her life had never been about romance alone. It had been about permission. Permission to be honest. To feel fully, to trust herself. Somewhere else, at that exact moment, Luca paused mid-conversation, feeling grateful for a heart that no longer feared breaking. Mateo looked at the people around him and felt present instead of performing. Julian closed a notebook, finally at peace with the person staring back at him. The jungle no longer surrounded them, but it lived within them. And the message remained, steady and clear. Not every love story is meant to last forever in form. Some are meant to last forever in meaning. They come into your life to teach you who you are when you stop being afraid. And when you carry that lesson forward, you never truly walk alone again.